The next fight on the main card, Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett. Again, there's so many stories with every card, with every fight on the main card. And that's why I love this. It's just not two world class fighters. It's all world class fighters on across the board. There's 10 of them, right? 10 world class fighters, and there's a story. Each of these matchups have a story, and each fight has so much implications for world champion, title shot, bigger payday, superstardom. Every one of these fights is such a big deal. When you look at Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett, again, there's a fork in the road, and this fork has been in the road for Tony Ferguson, but it's also a fork in the road for Paddy Pimblett because most people think Paddy lost his last fight against Jared Gordon, and he's gotten a lot of hate for that. But he's this young kid. He says some of it did get to him, like when Rogan said he thought he lost the fight, and so he wants to prove to everybody that he is the real deal. But Paddy Pimblett, a lot of people root against this kid because they think he's had it too easy and he doesn't deserve the fame that he's getting, which I disagree. This kid is an absolute freaking star. Now, is he a world beater right now? No, but he's not supposed to be right now. You got to realize where he's at in his career. He's not supposed to be, a top 10 guy right now. So, he stumbled against Jared Gordon. Again, he's gotten all this hate, and he's good at managing that, and he's a superstar for that reason. He does well with whether he gets, praised or whether he gets hate. So that's part of being a superstar, is dealing with all that noise and not letting it get to you, not changing who you are. And I think Paddy Pimblett's built for this. The issue with Paddy Pimblett is his star is bigger than his experience and skill set right now. So for him, we want to keep this momentum going. He's a Barstool guy, so he has the push from Barstool, which is massive. Dana White loves him. He's the face of Liverpool, so he has all this going for him. But people don't like when you get over. When you get over on a guy like Jared Gordon, who's this grinder and he's beloved by fans, and people thought he lost that fight, and he probably did. It was close, but he probably did. So now this next one, it's tough for Paddy Pimblett because he's in a no-win situation. Even if he gets the best version of Tony Ferguson, who's training, with David Goggins, which we'll get to, but even if it's a good version of Tony Ferguson, people still aren't going to give Paddy the credit he deserves, because you're talking about a Tony Ferguson, which most of the people watching this show and the people in this room remember when Tony Ferguson was the baddest 155er on the planet. It was him or Khabib. They were supposed to fight many times. It didn't come to fruition. All good. But Tony at one point was the baddest man walking the planet. So we know that version. And Paddy's not fighting that version. Paddy's fighting a guy with 6 losses. So, again, for Paddy, if he goes in there, he knocks him out in 10 seconds, we're like, yeah, dude, it's Tony Ferguson. That's his 6th loss in a row, 7th loss in a row. Good job. Next. So this isn't going to do much for Paddy, but hurt him. If this is a competitive fight, if it goes the distance, this can be bad for Paddy. So, I get the UFC's traditionally known for when a guy of legendary status like Tony Ferguson and they got the up-and-comer, they're going to say, all right, beat him, to dethrone this guy and take his fan base and move on. They've done this a million times. But this is the worst one I've seen yet, because no matter what Paddy does, he can't really win people over with this. So it's a very, very risky fight for Paddy. He's not going to gain any more fans. He just has to show that he can dominate a guy like Tony Ferguson. Tony is tough, man. I know he's fallen on hard times. He's a shell of himself. And no matter what happens here, I don't want to say it should be Tony's last, because I do think if Tony were to win this fight, there's a world where Tony gets the Conor McGregor fight. I could see something like that happening, because Tony and Conor are supposed to fight for a hot second. Conor is going to fight Chandler next at probably UFC 300 or maybe a little later, but there is a good chance, and as much as we love Conor, there's a good chance Conor loses that fight. So what do you do with Conor? He's not going to fight these big-time dudes anymore. He can't. It's not there. We need to get him a win. A Tony Ferguson fight makes a lot of sense, but Tony has to win. So if Tony wins, what a great last fight. You finally get that elephant fight, that golden elephant, that green elephant named Conor McGregor. It's a good fight for Conor. It's a good fight for Tony. It makes sense. A lot of people would tune in. Everyone's familiar with Tony. Everyone in God knows Conor. He needs to win. It'd be a good fight all the way around. So for Tony, if he loses, yes, end of the road, 100,000%, this thing's over. But what's waiting for Tony, if he were to win, is I think a Conor McGregor fight. So again, fork in the road. Think about that. Those two extremes. If you lose to Paddy Pimblett, a guy who's not even ranked, this whole thing is over. Your ridiculous Hall of Fame career is over. If you win, waiting in the shadows is the biggest fight of your life. Even though you've lost 6 out of 7 fights, if you were to win this one, you've lost 6 out of 7, and you still get the Conor fight. And you know what? He's earned it. Who would be mad at that? He's earned it. You wouldn't watch Tony Ferguson and Conor?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Hell yeah, you would. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
They were supposed to fight a few times now. They've been calling each other out.
He keeps calling them McNuggets too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
There's a lot of heat there.
Yeah.
But what a great send off for Tony Ferguson in his career.
Yep.
He deserves that. So I'm conflicted on this card with a bunch of these fights. My heart wants this guy to win, but my head's definitely saying this guy to win. So I'm not betting on this card. I'm not. I like too many guys. Vicente Luque, he's been on food. Vicente Luque is one of the nicest guys you will ever. He is so freaking cool. But I don't even know him, Machado Gary. But just as a fight fan, I want to see him win. Doesn't mean I don't like Vicente Luque. I just think Vicente Luque's had his run, and it's Ian Machado Gary's turn. When it comes to Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett, I don't want to see Paddy Pimblett lose. I love Paddy. Paddy's one of my favorite fighters. Again, he's on the come up. I love that story. That's what I do this for. I would love to see Paddy win and get another big fight and prove all these people wrong, and his striking gets better. But again, I love Tony. Because Tony wins. I really think a Conor fight's in his future. I'd love for a guy that's put in the work and all the years and, probably suffering from CT in some,
Maybe,
degree.
yeah.
And his send-off is a mega fight against Conor McGregor that he's always wanted. Yeah, he deserves it, man. He has kids. He has a family. He's put all the work in. He deserves it.
That'd be a great fight for the casuals and the hardcores too. Yeah, so it would be a great fight for sure.
But do I want to see Paddy lose? No. Do I want to see Tony lose? No. So it's I don't want to pick that card. Now I bet Brian Callen, because he's a moron. I bet Brian a lot of money. Tony Ferguson could win because, even though he's lost 6 in a row, Tony Ferguson's a savage. And training with David Goggins, I like that, but it doesn't make me feel good because the last thing on my mind when Tony's going to the octagon is, I hope he's in shape. Has it in the history of Tony Ferguson fights, has everyone went, he looks out of shape? Never. Also, this is a 3-round fight. If it was 5 rounds, I'm like, oh man, it's Tony with an even better gas tank, for sure gonna win. It's 3 rounds. Tony can do 3 rounds. He doesn't even need a training camp. So having David Goggins, again, Tony's never been mentally broke. I can understand if it was a guy like Paddy Pimblett, let's say 2 fights from now, cardio's an issue, he's on a 2-fight losing skid, and he just needs to get his, that oomph back, that kind of dog in him back. Yeah, then you send him to David Goggins. But with Tony, that dog's never left. His body left. His chin left. David can't really help with that stuff. So as much as, I posted him training with David, and I love it, and I was like, definitely picking Tony now. All jokes aside, it's for Tony's, it's going to be head movement and, I think mixing it up more, not relying so much on that weird kind of unorthodox movement anymore at his age, and a takedown defense. Takedown defense is kind of, it's not great there, but he'll always embrace it because he encourages the transitions and will catch people in darces and triangles and head and arm chokes. So for him, it's going to be taking advantage of Paddy Pimblett's striking. Paddy Pimblett's striking is nowhere near Tony's, especially his defense. Paddy Pimblett's defensive striking is very amateur. He has to work on that, and he's going to work on it. I'm sure that we're going to get a better version of Paddy Pimblett, but Is he a finished product? No. Is there holes in his games? Absolutely. But that's why this is great. So we'll see what version of Paddy we get. We'll see what version of Tony we get. But the implications for that fight are insane. For Tony, it's either you're done and you're watching the UFC like me on the couch for the rest of your life, or in your future is a Conor McGregor fight. For Paddy, lose this one, man. He's still young enough where it's not the end of the road, but it definitely hurts.